Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here, and today we're going to be talking about the Cybertruck. We have a new prototype of the Cybertruck that has been spotted at the Fremont test facility with a drone flyover video. So we'll look at some of the images from that and some of the changes that we can spot from the Cybertruck spotting. We also have a little bit of news on the Model S and X. The Tesla has changed the ordering process there a little bit outside of the United States, or outside of North America. And then we'll talk a little bit about the stock and a couple of other stories. And I guess we'll start there with the stock, as we usually do. So Tesla today finishing up 1.3%, pretty good day. The macro environment was strong as well. Tesla up to $1,017.03 to close out this week. And then the NASDAQ finished up about 0.7%. So Tesla doing well, but again, relatively, quiet volume this week if we can get that to load. Yeah, I mean, most of the week below 20 million shares. Definitely not the volume that we were seeing a couple weeks back when Elon had first started selling his shares. So we'll see if we get any more Form 4s tonight. We did get some yesterday. We'll hop into that. So yesterday, Elon again continuing to exercise and sell shares as a part of those exercises. He exercised 2.1 million shares as he's been doing, sold 934,000 as he has been doing. And of course, these are the predetermined sales plans. I know that's small on the screen, but predetermined sales plans from back in September. So if we look at a quick update on our tracking table, Elon is now at 11 million shares sold in total. He's ended up exercising, so acquiring almost 13 million shares. So net he's up about 1.8 million shares, but of course has had to pay tax on, these 11 million shares that he has sold. He has used those to cover taxes, and then some additional to raise some capital for himself as well. So if we assume that Elon is going to sell 17 million, that's about 10% of the shares that he has already had and exercised, but he does still have some more shares outside of that. So he's going to end up selling somewhere between 17 and 25 million, long and short of it. If we assume the lower, he's 65% of the way. If we assume the higher, 44% of the way. And then looking at the 2012 CEO Performance Award, Elon's got about 10 million shares of that remaining to be exercised. And of course, he's been doing that in 2 million share lots. So he's got about 4.5 to 5 of those lots left. And that'll be another additional 4 million shares sold. So between the two, he's only going to be at 15.4. So he will have to sell a little bit more discretionally rather than as a part of the pre-planned sales if he is going to get up to that 17 million level. So that being said, let's hop into the Cybertruck, but just one other quick thing here. This seemed to get quite a bit of attention today for some reason. Elon yesterday tweeting, thinking of quitting my jobs and becoming an influencer full time. What do you think? I think that obviously that's a joke. So any of the articles out there today on that missed that or were willfully ignorant to that, I guess. Shame on those, but I don't think Elon's quitting. Obviously, just a joke there. All right, so getting into the Cybertruck, I did put a link to this video down in the description if you do want to watch it. 10 solid minutes of Cybertruck driving around on the Fremont test track. Really cool to see this. It's the first not potato resolution video that we have had of the updated prototype of the Cybertruck. So it seems like Tesla, now being willing to at least take this out on the test track when they know drone video operators are out there and stuff like that. So if we look at a few photos here, we're just going to flip through a few of them here and talk about some of the changes. So obviously the first things that kind of stick out, you can see, the side view mirrors on there. You can see the wiper. And let's just kind of flip through some of these. People are saying that maybe it looks a little bit shorter or more condensed. I would be very careful with those interpretations because we're not used to seeing the Cybertruck from a drone angle, top down, and people always underestimate the impact that those perspective changes can have. It just makes the depth look a lot different. So be careful with your comparisons. It's tough to tell how different this is in terms of, some of those things from these angles that we're not used to seeing. So with that caveat in mind, we'll obviously talk about some of the changes that we're seeing here. I'm just going to keep flipping through these. Overall, I think it looks obviously very similar, especially considering the different perspective. We're seeing a lot of the same stuff, but as we talked about the side view mirrors here, Elon did comment on those, as well as the wiper you can see. So this is something that we didn't see on the original prototype. And Tesla kind of following the Roadster prototype style of having the wiper just kind of attached there on the side. And it's obviously a really, really big wiper. I don't know that it's going to be able to cover the entire windscreen there, but we'll have to see on that. The other thing is we're looking at the side view here. You can see that there are no more door handles, and at least there don't appear to be. And this is a pretty high resolution shot, definitely higher than what we've seen before. And the prototype had Model S style cutouts there, and we're not seeing those anymore, as Elon had alluded to on Twitter previously. Here's kind of a top-down perspective comparing, it's a little bit tough because the fronts here aren't lined up, but we can kind of compare the size of the Model S and the Cybertruck. Cybertruck's a big vehicle, and I think this makes it look pretty big too, but I think if you were to slide this forward by a couple of feet, it ends up looking really not insane sized, but definitely, still pretty big. I think we've got one other comparison shot here. Somewhere. Anyway, another top-down photo. It looks like the general structure is still pretty similar. You got the giant kind of Model X reminiscent windscreen coming back pretty far. Looks like you can see the driver's hand there. So it's coming back, probably most of the way towards where their head is at. Then you've got the giant glass panel covering basically the rear seats. So should be very similar to the prototype we had seen previously. There is some discussion on if the bed is a little bit shorter now. I think the prototype was 6.5 feet. I may be getting that wrong. I'm sure we'll have some, measuring that's being done right now, and people will try to figure this out, but we'll see. Still definitely a decent size bed there. Looks much bigger than the Rivian does to me, at least. All right, so this wiper, let's talk about this. Couple of angles here. And the reason I have both of these is because it kind of demonstrates what I'm talking about with the perspective being a little bit off. In this case, it kind of looks like this wiper is not going to cover the entirety of the screen. You can, sort of imagine an arc coming down sort of around there. And it feels like it maybe is only going to cover, I don't know, like basically the driver's side half of the Cybertruck here. But if we look at this one, again, a different perspective and definitely changes things. This one almost looks like it would cover, maybe reach all the way over to the end of the windscreen. So I think a couple of points on that. It demonstrates that, we don't, when you're looking at shots like this, it's the perspective definitely changes things. And on the wiper itself, we're just going to have to kind of wait and see how that ends up functioning, I think. But what Elon did say on the wiper is he said that it is what troubles him most with this design. He says there's no easy solution. Deployable wiper that stows in front trunk would be ideal, but complex. I don't know why it would need to necessarily stow in the front trunk. Obviously, in the other vehicles Tesla's making, it would kind of just slot in right there. Maybe there just is, no. Yeah, you can kind of see it on this shot here. There's not really any lip there. I assume for aerodynamic purposes, but I'm not sure that would be a ton better. But obviously Tesla's thought about these things, and this is what they're feeling best about right now. I think when we saw the Roadster prototype, this was the biggest question that people had too, is if there's just going to be that big wiper off to the side. But that seems to be what Tesla feels is best right now. And there's some question on if this would be sort of a vertical or a horizontal wipe versus more of an arc. I think this definitely looks like a pivot point rather than something that's going to slide. So right now it looks more of, like a standard wiper than the patent that we had seen that Tesla has had for that, horizontal motion. The other thing Elon said, that he's talking about the side mirrors. So manufacturers, as we've talked about, required to have side mirrors currently. NHTSA is reviewing that to see if they want to make changes to it, but that is currently the law. But it sounds like Tesla's got this in mind, that in many states, and you see this on, we've talked, I think I've linked to this state by state before. A lot of Jeep owners will take their side mirrors off. So there's a Jeep subreddit that's tracked this state by state. So a lot of states will allow you to actually take off one or both side mirrors after the manufacturer ships it. So I don't know. Personally, I don't think they look too bad. I think people are going to get used to it. I'm sure a lot of people will take them off if it's simple, but I definitely think the implementation looks just fine. I did just want to stop on this shot for a second and then we'll move on. It's just a cool, like, I think the Cybertruck looks really cool from this perspective. And just how this set up, there's all these other cars around and the Cybertruck just kind of off by itself. I don't know. It looked like post-apocalyptic. Oh man, I can't even say that. Post-apocalyptic to me, to some extent. So Cybertruck looks awesome. I'm excited about it. I guess one other comment that I do have, you can see in this shot, looks like the headlights aren't really on, just kind of probably the daytime running lights below there. So I was a little bit worried that maybe they removed the light bar that we had seen in the prototype. But in this, you can definitely see that there is a different reflection there. So I think that is probably going to stay as a part of the design, which is exciting. What I don't know about is the prototype did have a light bar up here too, on the top of the windscreen. And none of the other photos seem to really have that. It's really tough to see because there's so much tint there. And I don't know that we really had an overhead shot from before that we can compare with, but to me, it looks like that may have been removed, which would be a little bit disappointing. But we'll obviously find out. All right, so let's see. I think Elon had one other thing. So we've heard this before, but in terms of if there would be a wrapped option for the Cybertruck, Tesla's not planning on doing that themselves. Originally, Elon says not at first, but of course there are many third-party options for wrapping. So yeah, I don't want to go on too long. I know I've been a little bit rambly there with the Cybertruck stuff, but next here we're talking about the Model S and Model X. With the refresh versions, Tesla has actually let customers know, so thanks to Shmoo on Twitter for tagging me on this, but S and X order holders outside of North America did receive emails talking about how Tesla is going to be adjusting the launch timing for markets outside of North America, delaying those. They say that they expect current deliveries, this is for a Model X at least, outside of North America to begin in the second half of 2022. And they say that in order to expedite delivery of existing orders as much as possible, for now, they're no longer accepting new orders for S and X outside of North America. So you can see this is the UK design studio. You can see what Tesla has done here. You can still go in, you can configure, but the prices have been removed from all configurations, all options. There's just no pricing on the page anymore. And if you do configure something, you are still able to order, but really it's just putting down a $100 refundable deposit. And obviously that's no longer going to be locking in the pricing like it would have previously. In this email that has been shared, Tesla did say that your Model X will continue to adhere to the price at the date of ordering. So it shouldn't be concerning for those that already had locked in orders. But I would imagine that as Tesla does get production at a better level and starts to get ready to export more outside of North America, they're leaving themselves the pricing flexibility so as to not get stuck in the situation where I think they've kind of been through most of this year, where they're trying to raise prices, but there's just such a long delay in that actually hitting the books because of the order backlog. So I think Tesla realizing that and applying those changes to the S and the X. Yeah, I think that's most of what I wanted to comment on that. And then that was a lot of the Tesla news today. And then we just have a couple other things here. So first up, just a Detroit Free Press article about Mary Barra. They did kind of an interview with her just on electrification and what GM is doing there. And there are a few interesting quotes in here. I don't necessarily want to highlight all of them because some of them I think are a little bit out of context, but this one I couldn't really pass by. So they're talking about, GM and their electrification strategies. Mary Barra saying, quote, "We saw this early and we invested in it. What distinguishes us for an OEM of scale, we're first, full stop." So we continue to hear, Mary Barra talk about this, and she does give the disclaimer here for an OEM of scale. But I think what's kind of interesting about this, if we scroll down a little bit further here, the Detroit Free Press says that Barra admitted that GM needs to do a better job telling why it will lead the transition to EVs, then deliver new EVs that customers want to buy. So it's kind of interesting to hear that perspective. And unfortunately, that's not a quote. So this could be, some editorial license from the Detroit Free Press talking about, or, paraphrasing her a little bit there. But I don't think they need to do a better job of talking about it. I think they just need to do a better job of delivering on it. She even at one point talks here about, kind of throwing a little bit of shade at Tesla, it seemed, when she was asked about the EV tax credit. She says, let's see where that quote's at. Hold on one second. Okay, yeah, so there it is. She says, it's one thing if you're selling luxury vehicles to a slice of the public. It's another thing when you're providing EVs to someone who buys a $30,000 Equinox, because that's the most that they can afford. It's their only vehicle. If they don't get to work, it impacts their livelihood. Do those individuals need that support to make the transition? I think it's reasonable if you're trying to accelerate something. So I don't want to pick on those comments too much. She's supporting the tax credit. I think there's validity to the tax credit, especially as it levels the playing field for EVs and internal combustion engine vehicles. But this was brought up in the context of Tesla, and to, try to say that Tesla is selling luxury vehicles when right now, you can't even buy the Bolt. So GM is not offering an electric vehicle that's below the price of anything that Tesla is selling. And they're talking about the $30,000 Equinox, but they're not there yet, just like Tesla is not at the $25,000 vehicle either. So just wanted to kind of talk about that interview. I saw a lot of Tesla community discussing that today. And then the last thing here, so this is not super related to Tesla anymore, but could be kind of interesting, and probably, just a good thing overall. So Bloomberg today reporting that the U.S. Justice Department has launched an expansive criminal investigation into short selling by hedge funds. Of course, this has received a lot of attention this year with all the GameStop stuff. And I think that's probably what's drawing this in. But, certainly Tesla was in that position, different than GameStop, but in the position of being a heavily shorted stock. And, there was a lot of discussion about whether these short selling position holders were doing anything manipulative to help, support their short positions. So it says here they're scrutinizing their symbiotic relationships, hunting for signs that they improperly coordinated trades or broke other laws to profit, according to people familiar with the matter. So longtime listeners may remember this. We did have an episode super long time ago talking about, this was before even YouTube, talking about some of the history of short sellers, specifically Jim Chanos, and some of the manipulative tactics that they may be using at times to, coordinate with the release of analyst notes or publish sort of hit pieces and make trades around those. So I think it's good to have more oversight on this, and should hopefully be helpful for the market as a whole. All right, so I think those were, most of the big pieces of news today. Thanks for bearing with me through the live stream. I feel like I struggled with my speaking a little bit in this one, but appreciate you guys for bearing with me on that. I do see a couple super chats here, so I just want to make sure I don't, ignore those too much. Jacob here asking, any thoughts on Hyundai's new Ioniq 5? Its Model Y competitor Tesla should be worrying about. Definitely not something they should be worrying about, I wouldn't say. I don't know a ton about the Ioniq 5, but, it comes back to just always what we talk about with competition, right? Tesla's competition is not other EVs, it's all other vehicles. Same thing with the Ioniq, same thing with any new EV. So it's, the reason that I don't talk about, I don't know. I know we do talk about the comparisons between EVs on occasion, but the reason that we're not focused on every single new EV coming out and how it slots into comparison with all other EVs is because my personal belief is that electric vehicles are on the path to becoming superior vehicles. I think Tesla's there, and I think other manufacturers are going to get there. So, the annual sales for EVs right now is maybe 3 million vehicles, and the market's 80. So we should be mostly comparing Tesla with, other internal combustion engine vehicles. It's not an EV versus EV thing. But that being said, I'll do a little bit more research on the Ioniq 5 because I think it's always interesting to know what's going on there. Every time you give me a super chat, you're gonna have to send me a Twitter DM here to tell me how to say this name. But someone here is saying that I bet the windshield wiper extends and retracts to cover the whole window. That's kind of what it looked like to me too. I'll try to find that shot. Yeah. It kind of looks like there's some, maybe variability built in there. I don't know, but yeah, we'll see on that. Just want to make sure I didn't miss any other ones here. Thank you, John. Appreciate that. I'm sure that's related to my hair. And yes, another one here related to the hair. I appreciate you guys. Looks like that's it for the super chat. So thank you all. Have a great weekend. Make sure you're subscribed and signed up for notifications. You can also find me on Twitter at Tesla Podcast. And we'll see you on Monday, most likely. I don't think we'll have any opportunity for weekend videos